Misinformation is perhaps the single greatest threat to the health and well-being of our children at this present moment.
When January 6th happened, I was watching it and thinking I should be shocked, but I wasn't. January 6th has been happening all over the nation, just in small little increments.
I have a son who's 11 years old who is autistic. And shortly after he was diagnosed, that's kind of where I fell into the autism disinformation sector. In a Facebook group, there was another parent who had offered some pseudoscience treatments. Hundreds of thousands of children are being subjected to charlatans who are, giving them bleach and also giving the solution in enemas. And we see the damage from that. We see the photos in the groups of bloody insides coming out of these children.
I got on Twitter specifically for advocacy, and in the setting of COVID, it is ruthless sometimes. So there are people with huge followings, 600,000 people who follow them on a social media platform, who will say something like masks don't work. And all of this time, our hospitals are filled to the brink, and these people are spreading this virus and getting sick and exposing us. Now we've reached this point with these vaccines, and we're seeing it all over again.
My daughter was murdered in the Parkland school shooting. For too many people out there, that tragedy isn't enough. They add to it. They take advantage of it.
My daughter, Allison, was the journalist along with her cameraman that were killed on live television. The video and the recording of her murder have been proliferating on the internet, on Google, on Facebook, and particularly YouTube. It's been my fight over the last 5 years plus to get this video removed.
So this summer, I made the choice to run for the mayor of my small town here in Montevallo, Alabama. I would have been the first African-American female who's ever run for that position in our town. I'm not going to say that I lost because of social media. What I am going to say is that the climate of our city changed because of social media. We went from being this wonderful, friendly, inclusive town to being this town who was divided because the people who didn't want me to win painted me as an angry Black person who just wanted to take their town away from them.
I served Metropolitan African Methodist Episcopal Church. Members of the Proud Boys came onto our property and destroyed our Black Lives Matter sign. It was an act of political violence. These people were mobilized using social media.
Anthony Huber was the absolute love of my life, my soulmate. He was 26 years old. The star of the Proud Boys shot him right in the chest, killing him almost instantly.
Less than a year after my daughter was killed, through Instagram, my son and I started receiving messages from someone who is changing his username, but it was always going to be some variation of the name of the killer of my daughter. He destroyed my wife and my son emotionally for the better part of several weeks. It was clear this person was targeting my family and other families, and this targeting was escalating. But none of those despicable things would have gotten the platform to cooperate. What ultimately was the only thing that was able to get the search warrant was the inevitable messages where he said, "You will soon feel the power of my AR-15.
I would go to the grocery store, the same grocery store that I've shopped in my entire life. And people who would normally stop and talk to me in the produce aisle would skedaddle and not even speak. And it was because they had heard that I wanted to take away the monuments, or I wanted to defund the police. And none of those things were true. There were all of these little group pages that had been created where all of this information was being shared like wildfire. We did reach out, but there's nobody to reach out to. Like, who do you tell that somebody is lying on you on Facebook? There's nobody really to tell about that.
It's very clear that we are a Black church. And it's very clear that we were chosen because of that. It's also very clear that technology was used to rally persons. Without the platforms, it would have been almost impossible to gather people in that way.
The Kenosha Guard page that incited the civilian militia here in Kenosha was flagged 455 times and was not taken down. And Mark Zuckerberg's comment was,
the page violated our policies, and it was largely an operational mistake.
There were people from all over the world responding to this event, and people showed up that night to the protest, all brandishing assault rifles and semi-automatic weapons. It certainly would have never happened if that group had been, taken down like it should have been.
I definitely think that social media companies are in way over their heads. Say I report a post that has Miracle Mineral Solution. I know that the person that's on the end of this report has no idea what this is. In my opinion, we need oversight from regulators. There's been promises to remove misinformation, specifically around autism. I haven't seen any impact from that.
My message to the CEOs of the big social media companies would be this. What happens on social media doesn't stay on social media. It literally goes home with us. Social media was created to make our worlds bigger. What is happening right now is counterproductive to that goal. My world got smaller. My world got more hateful.
YouTube and Facebook, you guys are profiting from my daughter's murder. And I'm not going to stand for that.
But what if anybody in this situation was your own child? You literally have the ability to prevent this type of thing from happening as often as it does. And you don't. For what? For money?
Why are these people who have so much power and so much wealth, why are they not feeling the same drive to do this? Why do they have to be called into a congressional hearing for this to become so important to them that they would do it?
Can you take a moment to step up and listen to the pain, the death, the disease that your platforms have directly contributed to?
We expect our leaders to make sure in the future that these platforms are not used for misinformation and disinformation, because they're not just ones and zeros going across the World Wide Web. It results in damage to human beings.
Tech CEOs, we've had enough.
Mark Zuckerberg, I've had enough.
You must protect the vast majority of your users, people like me, my colleagues, my patients.
From hate, from harassment, and from harm. And you need to be clear that these things, this speech, is not neutral. People lose their lives.
And Congress, you need to pass laws to rein in their power.
You work for us, and it is your job to protect us. It is foundational to making the United States the democracy that it claims that it is.